Commissioner Escontrias?
Present.
Commissioner Rowe?
Present.
Commissioner Corman Super?
Here.
Chair McCauley?
Here.
And noting the absence of Commissioners Light, Barber Rigos, and Lang.
Okay. Shall we salute the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. All right. The order of the agenda, I know we have a guest speaker. Thank you for being here, by the way. Is that going to be first, or can we move that to be first?
Sorry about that. It's the first discussion item, so it should be fairly early enough in the agenda.
Okay, cool. So anybody object to the order of the agenda? All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
So the approval of the order of the agenda and to the blue folder items, we approved the blue folder items.
There was no blue folder items on the agenda.
And then for consent calendar, the approval of the minutes for our last meeting. We've all reviewed the minutes and we're okay with that?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Minute.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And the minutes are approved. And we're not doing anything with the affidavit.
Well, it is on the consent calendar, so if since the F1 was already approved, if we can do a second motion to approve that one, that would be great.
Okay, if we get a motion to approve the affidavit of the posting? Anyone?
Motion for approval.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
The affidavit of posting is approved. Thank you. Excluded consent calendars, there's nothing?
No, not this one.
And public participation in non-agenda items, is there anything there?
No public comment at this time.
No public comment? And items continued from previous agendas?
We have none this evening.
We have
Chair.
none there? And items for discussion prior to action, which is the discussion of the play equipment at Rbusd. J1.
Okay, so I will go ahead and just provide a very brief presentation on this. If you remember at the last meeting, Commissioner Lang did request a future discussion to consider the public's use of play equipment that are on school site properties. And so we have connected with the board member elder who is here this evening to kind of speak about the potential partnership opportunity. I just want to really provide the commission with an overview of this. This is very high level discussion. We're very early on in this process. And so tonight we're really just hoping to get some sort of an affirmation from the commission that you would like for the city to continue to move forward in this direction, or that there just isn't much of an interest at this time to look at this. This would be a very big endeavor. It's definitely possible, but it would be very big. And so we just kind of wanted to take a moment to kind of gauge the commission. If there is an interest, we would then ask board member elder to go back to the school board and see if the school board has an interest in it. At that point, if both parties are interested in discussing, then we would then, of course, look into it at a much deeper analysis and have a much deeper conversation about it at a future meeting. So just kind of wanted to phrase kind of how this discussion would go. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. I don't know if Mr. Elder had any comments or anything to share with you all as well, but either one of us are here to answer any questions this evening, so thank you.
Thank you. So are we calling Mr. Elder up? Board member Elder, please.
Thank you, Chair, and Commissioners and staff for being here tonight. Thank you for your service to our community. My name is Dan Elder. Sorry. And I once, long ago, was on Recreation and Parks Commission, so I know the fun topics we get to cover here, and this is important work. So thank you for being here. I was really happy to see this topic brought up by one of your commissioners. I think it's very interesting. As a parent of 2 children in the city, I appreciate our lack of park space, and I'm always looking at ways we can increase recreational opportunities for them. And the use of school property is one of the things that's come up in the past. So I just wanted to run through a little bit of the history of what that looks like, why things are the way they are today, and what kind of the options are that we've seen other cities implement or other school districts implement, so you get an idea for what that might look like. But of course, it's, please ask questions. This is a high-level discussion meant to just kind of kickstart things. So what I wanted to start with is, for a school district, and not just ours, any school district, at least in California, their highest priority is serving their students. That always comes first. And one of the big reasons for that is because, and this is, I get confused questions about this all the time, and it's very confusing. People think that their property taxes go to their local schools, and they do not. People get very upset that they pay high property taxes here. Why don't we have, X, Y, and Z? It's because those go to the state, and then the state distributes them back to the school districts based on the number of enrolled students. And they also distribute it based on higher needs. So if you've got English language learners, foster youth, students who qualify for free reduced lunches, there's an additional amount. So this is called the local control funding formula. There's a base amount you get per student. There's an additional amount you get for higher needs students. And then if you've got a significant concentration of higher needs students, you get even more beyond that. So it gets a little bit complicated very quickly, but schools are almost entirely funded through that formula. And there's other funding mechanisms as well, but local property taxes just don't factor into it. Aside from if you've got a local bond or a local parcel tax, that bypasses us, unfortunately. So we have to focus on meeting the needs of our students, because that's our purpose. Of course, we do want to serve the broader community. We just can't detract from the experience of our students to do that. And so when we look at things like opening up schools to the broader community, there are some challenges with that. And just to run through some of them, liability insurance, of course, is a big one. So our insurance does not cover use by the general public for our facilities. That's why they are locked up after hours and restricted. They are used by outside organizations, and I'll go through that in a minute, how that works, but liability insurance is not cheap. When you're talking about broadening it, particularly because we're not set up for general use, and I'll go through that as well. Other challenges we would face, though, by opening up to the public is there's things like increased wear and tear. The more people using it, the more play equipment's going to get run down, things like that. And again, these are not insurmountable challenges. It's just a factor that goes into the consideration. Vandalism's a problem even when our facilities are locked up. So opening them doesn't help that. And then, crime or things like transient. So we have to make sure that our schools are safe when kids show up in the morning and when they're on campus. So, having things open overnight or things like that just doesn't work on school days, because as soon as kids show up, that campus has to be safe. So there's things like, how do you, what type of oversight do you need from a staff perspective to unlock and lock, monitor the facilities, make sure they're being used appropriately, things like that. And you need a lot more of that, because our playgrounds really are designed for supervised use, whereas city parks are designed for unsupervised use. And that goes all from the play equipment itself to the way the physical layout, to simple things like lighting. Our playgrounds don't have any lighting to be used at night, so our fields do for field use by sports organizations, but our play equipment doesn't. So if you wanted nighttime access, that's something that we would have to look at is how do we make it safe at night with lighting, things like that. So those are some of the things that go in there. Now, we do have a lot of access to our facilities, though. I just dropped off 2 of my kids at 2 different schools for ASO right now, for example. So there's what's called the Civic Center Act. It's Education Code 38130. Basically, schools are required to allow access for organized use, and that's ASO, Little League, Pop Warner flag football, programs like that. And the reason that's so successful is because they bring their own insurance, and they also pay to use the fields. And what that does is we don't have to worry about insurance liabilities. That's entirely shifted to them. And that fee they pay covers the wear and tear and maintenance. So it's like a lot of our park use fees. It's just there to cover the costs. It's not something that we make money off of. It's just designed to be, strictly cover the costs of use. And that works great. You can drive by a lot of our fields at night and see different sports programs on there. And that's a fantastic use. But it is different from just opening it up unsupervised with uninsured, things like that. So that's something to consider. And for us, again, as a parent and as a community member, I would love to see our schools better utilized, our playgrounds better utilized for kids. We just don't have the resources as a school district to, pay for that added insurance and reconfigure sites as necessary, put in lighting and those types of things. So those are all things we'd really want to talk about. But right now, coming out of a pandemic, our huge focus and all of our resources are going to helping our students recover, and not just academically, but socially and emotionally. We are throwing everything we can at trying to help them catch back up. You can look at test scores to see where we've fallen academically. You can see how there's more fights, there's more, social situations that are before conflict resolution would have been a lot easier. Now that's not. So we're focusing all our resources there. But it's recreational activities are certainly a way we can help kids too, and expanding them is something that works. So just to throw out what other cities have done to allow for this, because some of our neighboring cities have. For example, Manhattan Beach, they do provide general access to some of their sites, their school sites, for the public. So those are left open. I don't know all the details. They do have a memorandum of understanding, an MOU, between the city and the school district, where the city pays the school district a little over $1 million a year for the access to that. And again, that covers the things like the insurance liability, the wear and tear, things like that. Beverly Hills has something similar, but in their case, I think they pay their school district something like $11.5 million a year. I suspect it doesn't cost that much to provide that service. I suspect that's more of a way of the city funding their school district, but I don't know the particulars. Again, the Manhattan Beach MOU, I could provide to anyone who's interested. You can read through it and see all the details that go into something like that. But that's really how a lot of these types of open access situations work, because schools, unfortunately, in California are very poorly funded. This last year, we finally got a big bump relative to what other states have done, but we're still pretty far behind. And because of our community being a wealthier community, we have a lower percentage of English language learners, foster youth, things like that. So we actually get quite a bit less funding than schools that do have a higher proportion of students that are in needier situations. So the beach cities are blessed with a lot of wealth in our community, but at the same time, it reduces the amount of funding our schools get. So something to be aware of. Something else to be aware of, though, too, is this is a topic that's come up with the General Plan Advisory Committee. It's OS 1-7. They wanted to consider joint use agreements with Rbusd as well as the Beach Cities Health District. So I don't know that that's necessarily gone anywhere, but that is something that the Planning Commission will probably hear, City Council will hear, and GPAC certainly has talked about it. So you're not the only ones asking this question or looking into ways to make this work. But that's my kind of high-level overview, and I would love to hear feedback or questions or anything I can clarify.
Okay. Anybody have any questions initially that want to start? I know I can think of a couple. Clearly there's a lot of obstacles that we have, but I wouldn't say they're insurmountable. It just seems like it's money, liability for some of it. And it wouldn't have to be all the locations as well. It would be like targeted locations. So one question I have on that is, if there were places that were identified from the community to open up, and the money came from somewhere other than the school district, there's a liability for the money for the insurance, I guess, as well, or for whatever would need to be done to the facilities to make it usable at night or whatever. The school district would be responsive to that?
Yeah, and again, I can only speak for myself. I don't speak for the entire district. I'm just one board member out of 5. But speaking for myself, yes, I would love to see, and to your point, targeted approach is good too, because some parts of the city, for example.
Make no sense at all.
Lincoln's got Anderson Park right next to it. So you don't need access to that play equipment versus other parts of the city. There's schools where there's no parks nearby. So yeah, absolutely wouldn't have to be everything.
And it could because we're kind of the city on this side of it. I know in dealing with some parks are split down the middle. I think of Alta Vista, I think of Anderson as well, right? Like some of it is school district, some of it is city. And there we get into like little things like the lights, like the walkway lights, the stadium lights, like who turns them on or who pays the electric bill, things like that come up as well. And so there is already a cooperation on a lot of the facilities, and I would think those would be the easiest ones to kind of target that are kind of already in use. Expanding like some of the fields, like soccer, right? Soccer uses, say, Toledo, the backfield. There's no lights there at all. I think they brought in lights at some point. They bring in some temporary lights where they used to. But things like that are kind of already happening. It would just be trying to expand it in other areas, because we are definitely, as we all know, we're park deficit for sure in the city. And incorporating, opening up more space that's on school district property, I would think is a pretty high priority for the city residents, for sure. It's kind of dysfunctional when we have, for example, at Alta Vista, on a Saturday afternoon, you have a lot of baseball or softball games going on or soccer games going on, and you have little siblings that are there hanging out watching their brothers and sisters play. And then there's that playground right there that they can see, but they can't touch. And so there's things like that, like it wouldn't need to be a nighttime, wouldn't need lights for that. Just open the gate for a few hours, but yeah, somebody has to close it. And so there would have to be coordination between the city and the school district for sure. But I would be optimistic that there would be funding from the community. I agree. Like I know I work for a school district, so I know the money is not coming from your side at all. And I think if we understand that going in, like then it would just be and I know the city isn't probably very anxious to cough up any money either. But there could be a cooperation between like public-private entities that kind of can raise money as well. So I would be all for pursuing things like that, because money shouldn't be the issue. It should be, we have these facilities that can be utilized a little bit more by the residents, and it may not be all of them, but whatever it is, we should really look into opening up and expanding. I would also I don't want to dominate on the time here, but you guys on the school district side are pretty efficient with the permitting and the use of the calendar, a little bit more from the city as well. So that blending of, there's a lot of things that can improve both sides, I think. Like there's some with the permitting or with the scheduling, I guess, with the school dude, or everything's kind of computerized with the school district. And so there are a lot of facilities that can be opened up, which I think would just be good for everybody. So that would be my 2 cents on that. Anybody else wants to?
I just have a quick question about, and I don't want to say what school this is because I don't want anybody to get in trouble. But is it possible that there have been a couple Redondo campuses that have been open on weekends during the day in the past?
So it's hard to say. I know the pandemic was kind of a big reset on a lot of things. So for example, I do see people on campuses, they're usually hopping the fence.
Okay.
So we do see that a lot, and it's one of those, kids playing basketball is not my, I want the facilities to be available for our community and our kids. I just want it to be, safe and everything else. But I mean, to give an example of, we do have a great partnership with the city. Two of the school board members came from the planning commission. So we've worked, both sides of everything, and we see it. One great program, for example, is the rec program the city has. So the rec program is entirely run by the city. They use a few of our school's facilities. It's an after-school program, essentially. So it's staffed by the city. It just uses our facilities. The kids have an after-school program. It's very low cost. It's fantastic. And then the city pays a very small amount each year just to use the facilities. Those are, examples of some of the great partnership programs we have. So to your point, starting with just a single school site or something like that, just to start the process, that's certainly an option too for getting our feet wet. But yeah, the facilities generally should not be open on weekends. Well, they're not now. In the past,
now, but perhaps before COVID, you think maybe?
Yeah, I mean, when I was growing up as a kid, all school sites were open.
Right.
And
Now they're all fenced up. And
that was the era before school shootings and so many other horrible things. So yeah, unfortunately, liability is a much more burdensome topic, things like that. So the world has unfortunately changed. But yeah, I miss those days. I would love to see something similar.
I have a question. have a lot of knowledge of it from this end of things, but in being associated with universities, a lot of times if you needed extra funding for things, you could write grants. Is that something you know that cities do to fund these kind of things? Have you heard of that?
I'm not aware of anything school districts have done in terms of grants for that. Our challenge, again, is that because we are a wealthier community, grants do not come to us first. So sometimes sometimes the voters will approve a statewide bond measure and things like that. And there's been a few that were just first come, first served, in which case we've had some success with those, but a lot of those are really targeted towards needier school districts. So if there's grant funding available, that'd be fantastic. I'm just not aware of any, unfortunately, but it is a great idea. I would love to find it. Magic pots of money are always good.
My attempt is not a question, but or a concern about something you said, because I think it's just kind of confusing. You said that somehow my property taxes did not pay for the school, but how it still comes from my property. How it flows back down to you, I think is something else. Because sometimes when you kind of say that, it makes it sound like you're totally independent and therefore our community somehow should not have any say in the school district or its facilities. But it is paid. That's one first thing. My other question would be, is there a written policy concerning the use of facilities within the district?
There are several board policies. I'd have to look up the specific one. But yes, sorry, just to clarify your point though, you absolutely have a voice. You've got a Board of Education, which is elected by the voters. That's what we're here for. That's my role. We're responsive to the community, and that's why I want to be engaged with the community. But yeah, and it's not that your property tax dollars don't fund the school. It doesn't matter how much or how little you pay in property taxes, the schools get the same. So that might be a better way of stating that.
Because, yeah, the kind of implications that it doesn't come, well, it does, but how it's filtered down and how it's managed, I think is a little bit different. Maybe it's just semantics. And my apologies if it comes across as being rude.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Okay, but my concern would be written policy, because it seems that sometimes in the bureaucracy, whether it's city or school districts, when something does not want to get done, suddenly it gets lost. And my concern would be that if we have facilities that we would like to use or that could be open, that somehow we can address that to say, if it's yay or nay, where does it say that? Okay, we can't use it because, again, you pointed out that there are certain ones we probably should not be using or cannot use because of insurance, because of usage and things like that or whatever else, which would be understandable. But is it codified anywhere? That's my concern.
It is, yes. Yeah, okay. The school facilities are restricted. Only authorized users.
For our district, does it say which ones are and which ones are not?
Which school sites or?
All? Yeah, okay, I'm just saying all, because then if they all are, then how can we utilize anything if it's already said that we can't use them?
Well, we can change the policy.
That's what I'm asking about.
Yeah, so that's, yeah, exactly. So if this was something everyone wanted to pursue, that's what we would look at. So we would try and figure out what is the cost of, and you may start with a single site, or you could do multiple sites, but you would look at what's the cost of insuring that, what's the cost of staffing someone to lock and unlock. So you kind of look at what does that associated cost look like, and then you would draft a very detailed MOU or joint powers agreement or something like that to the effect of this will be available to the general public from these hours on such and such. These are the parties responsible for locking and unlocking, and you would. It gets into a lot of detail, but yeah, policies can absolutely change. So nothing's set in stone. That's just the current policy because we don't have.
And is it possible that if there is a negotiation for that there's an actual liaison person instead of having, when we're looking for something to get done, that we'll go ask, that's not my area, that's not my school, that's not my area, this or that, high school, junior high, whatever, and suddenly we go down a rabbit hole, but we can't get anything done.
Yeah, absolutely. So someone at the city, I don't know which department specifically, but so maybe in the city attorney's office would review, but they would work directly with our assistant superintendent for administrative services office. It would not be me. It would not be anyone in here drafting that MOU. It would be the professionals doing that. But yeah, absolutely. And then we would, we're policy bodies. We provide direction. We don't provide the nitty-gritty details. That's what we rely on the experts for. But yeah, we would set direction of, yes, we want to pursue this, and then let them figure out the details and then, come back for approval.
Thank you.
So right now, where we are is the school district have a committee, or is it just you speaking on behalf of them and then you're coming to the city? And then the city, you mentioned the planning commission, there's already been discussion with the CPAC.
Yeah, so I don't know if the planning commission's discussed it. I know it's part of GPAC.
Or
They
GPAC,
brought it up. I don't know where that went after that, unfortunately.
Okay.
But yeah, and again, I'm not speaking on behalf of Rbusd, just as one board member.
Okay.
But I have discussed it with our assistant superintendent for administrative services. We've gone, we talked through what that looks like. She did a lot of research on the MOUs and found out what other cities were doing. So there is awareness. But so really the next steps would be, if you wanted to pursue this, you would probably make a recommendation to pursue it with city council. I would agendize it for discussion with the school board. Just so you're aware, we're in the middle of starting the process of hiring a new superintendent. So there's a lot of stuff going on at the school district right now. But we would, from both sides of that, approach it. And then assuming there's buy-in from city council and there's buy-in from the Board of Education, that's when the staff from both sides would start talking through what that looks like.
Right. Yes.
Interestingly, I'm kind of on the fence about this one because what you're saying, Chris, about, Alta Vista, right now there's that, tiny little playground that's across the street that is, I think, city-owned, right? Because that site is city-owned. Yeah. And then there's the big play structure that's part of the school. And in a situation like that, I can see why opening that up during, Saturdays and Sundays, just during the day, is very intuitive. That would make a lot of sense. On the other hand, to play devil's advocate, you open up my school, right, Jefferson Playfield, and then it's a hot day and you have slip and slides and you have dogs and you have trash and you have, so I do think that, and normally I'm all for everything, but, I do think that if we were to make a recommendation, that my vote at least would be for, essentially like a pilot thing where you just choose like one location and see how it works and deal with one opening, I think is more feasible or more palatable to people in general.
Like for whoever's discussing it between the city and the school district, right? Where you're saying like policy, right? Policy would be for all the locations. And I would hope that, and that those discussions, but yeah, that's exactly the point is.
I was saying,
You want to
what
make
is
it.
the policy?
Well, the policy being discussed is gonna, you don't want a blanket policy for this. I would think, you have a blanket policy now, it sounds like with the school district.
Well,
Nobody can use it.
He's saying that you have a blanket policy, but at the same time,
You can change the policy.
no, but at the same time, my understanding is this. Your blanket policy is that ideally now that you cannot utilize the school district property.
Authorized users, meaning youth sports programs like ASO and Little League, but yeah, it has to be an authorized program.
So there are exceptions to that. I would venture to say, like she says, let's take a look at it on a case by case, but what is
Yeah, well, that's what I'm
feasible?
saying, to kind of clarify for what you're thinking. I agree with you that there would be places where it wouldn't make any sense at all, like at that
Right.
location. And there's other locations where it would just make total sense, like that, it should be something that should already be happening. And, I would hope that in the dialogue that's what's happening, these are the things that would come up to make the best decisions. But yeah, even if it is just one facility, I think I'm encouraged by you being here and talking, because I know in my experiences dealing with the school district in the city, sometimes it's like, you think you're going to mom for one thing and she sends you to dad and you're going back and forth. And so there's a big learning curve as far as dealing with facilities. And, the city does things that the school district doesn't, and not everybody knows that. But they also talk to each other, their ground people, they know what they're doing and whatnot. So there's a lot going on that we can really capitalize on to make it work a little bit better.
Right.
And so that's, however we can do that would be
My
great.
concern would also be is that if, again, we take a look at facilities that would be beneficial to the community, but not always necessarily to the benefit of the school district. I understand that you have financial issues, so does the city.
Sure.
Okay, so I would venture to say is what is the public good? So if, for example, it requires somebody from the school district or a reasonable agreement of who has a key to open the lock and close the lock, that if it's to the detriment of the school district, that you take that into consideration, saying, yes, you're not, you can't pay somebody to do it, but we're going to do it anyway. Again, because our tax money went to pay for the gym, for other stuff that we do not have access to, that are probably very much premier items that the community has paid for. And there's a trade-off. That would just be my opinion, is that sometimes it's not always going to be to the benefit of the school district.
And Chair, if I may, I just want to, just for the sake of the conversation, just kind of reiterate that we're really so early in this process,
right,
and
but I would-
all these comments are actually wonderful. I think these are all absolutely should be part of the discussion. I just think we're still so early in the discussion that we really just want to know if you guys want us to look into it further. And of course, we will come back to the commission and make sure that you guys are all on board with whatever policies we set, whether it's a pilot program or a more full-on, robust reopening. So we're still very high level at this point.
So we basically, at this point, our job here is just to get a consensus and a vote to send up to the city for them to begin, that we recommend that they begin this process.
That there is an interest in looking into this as a possibility. And we would certainly follow up with the school board as well and make sure that they're comfortable pursuing that as well.
Okay. Are there any more questions from Board Member Elder? On that note, is there anything else that you would like to share with us, or?
No, thank you. Appreciate your interest. It's looking for better ways to better serve all of our community is always good. So, this is a good topic to be talking about.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Appreciate it. On that note, does anybody want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to continue the discussions along Dan's line and to raise that to a different level if needed with the city employees and city council.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so does anybody second that motion?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed?
I'm going to oppose it.
Okay. So the motion passes and we push it on to the city council.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. I can imagine that's many discussions on that one.
Will be many, definitely.
And so I don't see our agenda.
Oh, it's J2.
Computer not working?
Oh, I think you just have to hit PC again.
PC again. Politically correct, or personal computer. Okay.
Are they all on now?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, great.
So J2, review and discuss the Dominguez Park
one
Playground
next to
conceptual plan. Oh, yeah. So is this changed at all?
No, so we were working with the Public Works Department on the Dominguez Park Playground project, and we realized that the last time that this conceptual plan was brought to the commission was prior to the pandemic, it was actually in the middle. It was October of 2020, I believe. And considering the amount of time that's passed and all that this community has lived through with the pandemic, we wanted to make sure and just do a quick check-in with the commission that the conceptual plan is still the direction we should continue to move forward with the playground, that the kind of high-level elements that were talked about at the commission meeting, and I'll go through that list in just a moment, that those are still the direction we should continue to head. Because we're at the point now where what we want to do is prepare this conceptual plan along with the specs for the areas where the equipment will be installed, present that to several playground companies, and ask them to propose what equipment they have that would kind of match and check all the boxes of what the commission is going to hopefully affirm this evening with the playground elements. And then from that point, what we will do is compile all of that, bring all of that back to you all on the commission, and have you select the final playground equipment itself. So we're at a very exciting part of this process. But again, considering the amount of time that has lapsed and the fact that this is kind of sat dormant because of the pandemic really for 2 years, we wanted to do a really quick check-in with you all. So Our intent tonight is not to kind of unravel this unless this is completely off base from what it was 2 years ago. I would venture to say that it's most likely not, but if there are elements here that we should maybe reconsider or look at in a different light, I just wanted to provide the commission an opportunity to do that. So if I could actually project onto the screen, that might actually make it easier. I should have done that in the beginning of my presentation. I apologize. So we did have the conceptual plan, which we'll get on the screen in just a moment. Again, this was prepared following a pretty extensive community outreach. This commission was involved in that outreach, as well as reviewing this conceptual plan and providing some additional input to the final design company. And that is essentially where the program stopped, or excuse me, the project stopped. And so just really quickly, I just wanted to basically go through, this conceptual plan was approved by the commission, or I should say recommended to move forward, with the exception of some additional items for the city council, or excuse me, for the design company to consider. So I'm going to go through that list of those items for reconsideration. And then as part of your discussion, if that's helpful for you all to kind of go through those one by one, let us know if those are still something that we should consider, or if there's more to consider than that, please let me know. So the first one is to connect the perimeter road straight to Flagler Lane instead of winding around the park. So this bullet point, as well as a few of them, really had to do with a lot of the pathways and kind of the connectivity of the park with some of the other areas surrounding. So I'm kind of looking at this as a much more broader type of a theme in making sure that the pathways not only through the park and the playground, but then also kind of connecting it to some of the extra areas that are adjacent to the park are feasible for pedestrians. And again, the second one is to talk about the walking trails and bike paths and whether they can connect to the Beach Cities Health District's renovation. I don't know how much we can align to that, but again, just in the broader theme of the discussion of just kind of the connectivity. Consider adding a walking path along Flagler Lane. And the next one is to reuse existing rocks and boulders to create flow between the upper and lower areas of the park, inclusion of a native plant garden, inclusion of shade structures, and then inclusion of natural play elements, noting South Park and Hermosa Beach as an example. And so really tonight, what we're hoping to get from you all in the commission is an affirmation that the conceptual plan still looks good, we're still happy with it, and then also the reconsideration of the extra comments that I just went through. Those are listed on the second page of your admin report, or it's page 23 of the agenda. If it's, I can also pull those up if during the discussion, if you would like to go through those. So just let me know what's most helpful for you. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. I actually remember that meeting.
I have a quick question. This all still looks great to me, by the way, everything that, because I was here when this was originally discussed, and I think COVID didn't get in the way of the original plan. The thing that has come up recently for me, though, is I've been spending quite a bit of time on the small baseball field at Dominguez. And so there's the large baseball field and the small baseball field. And I know that those are run by Redondo Beach Little League, which that's not our league, so I don't know that much about it. But the small field is very, very poorly maintained as far as the, just the field in general. And so I'm just wondering, does the city have any control or access or anything over that? Or is that just relinquished completely to Redondo Beach Little League?
I unfortunately, I don't know the details. I don't know how that agreement works with the Little League. I would have to look into that a little bit further. But this project does not necessarily, well, this project is just strictly for the playground here. I know there are some extra projects that are going on throughout the park that Public Works is overseeing, but I don't think any of those touch the baseball fields at all. But to kind of circle back and answer your question, I can definitely see kind of who manages the fields and who oversees the ongoing maintenance.
Yeah, because when I spoke to the commissioner of Redondo Beach Little League about this, they didn't seem to know either.
Okay.
So I would just be curious to see if sort of who we would need to go to or what we would need to do to sort of, see how we could get that field better maintained.
Okay.
So I didn't realize it was completely separate, but so this just literally addresses that one,
just-
that tiny little area.
It's just
Okay,
the playground footprint.
okay,
Yes.
okay.
I'm trying to find a list of changes or recommendations. Well,
If you want to just give me a quick moment, I can pull that up. Sorry, you're going to watch me navigate everything, so. So here, it's this bulleted list here.
Okay, so do we want to pursue any of those or just go with the way the design is now? That's kind of where we are.
Yes, if any of these we need to affirm or remove or not consider anymore,
Okay.
or leave as is.
So connecting the perimeter road straight to Flagler. So that would be the path that is, if I remember, by number 1, and then it would continue all the way to the tree number 13. It would kind of go behind that tree straight to the curb. Is that correct?
Is it this
Yeah.
section here? Is
Yeah,
that
like
what you're?
just go straight. Is that what that means?
That's what I am understanding,
Okay.
connecting the perimeter road straight to Flagler Lane. Yeah. So it would just extend this pathway here a little farther west.
I could see that for people entering the park from that southwest corner, would be walking across that grass anyway, right? So I don't know if we need to vote on each of these or we want to just,
I just want to kind of gauge the commission. So
Okay.
if there's any major heartache or any concerns with them, please let me know. But otherwise, if you kind of breeze through them and there aren't any major objections, I'll just consider that still support for that item.
okay. So does anybody have any strong feelings for any of those or the project overall? Or are we, I assume nobody is against the project. So
No, I think this was a good, thorough report.
it'll be nice to see it actually come to fruition.
How many people were involved? It's 2018, so that's like 4 years ago. Is anyone?
I was here at the meeting when it was already done and it was just, we kind of gave the approval. There was a lot of work before that because it was, and I know Kate, you were on
I
it.
think I was here.
And that park definitely needed a little bit more of a TLC as well. So it's good to see. So I think, should we vote or just give you the verbal approval that we're all for it?
Yeah, a verbal approval would be great unless there's any objection.
Everybody, I think we're good. I think we're all on the same page.
Great, perfect. Thank you. I appreciate that.
What would be the timeline on that? Like, when would they?
So we actually are hoping to have, I don't want to give any definitive dates, but I know that our Public Works team, we're hoping to align the playground project with the rest of the park project that's going on. And Public Works is definitely moving forward with that very soon in the next few months. So I'm really hopeful, really in the next few months, maybe even by the end of this year, to have a presentation for you all to look at the playground equipment. And then installation would certainly happen pretty quickly after that, so.
Excellent.
Installation, like when we did Veterans Park. So we approved the RFP that was presented to us. We got to choose between about 6 different RFPs, and it was actually really fun and really, really cool. And then I thought like home construction, it would take a long time, and it was actually really quick.
Got it done fast.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Then that brings us to, and I'm all over the place here. J3, Commission Subcommittee Review and Project Update.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So that's just a standard item for
That's
any
for the-
commission to provide a general update. I did not receive any reports for that, so tonight, if there are any just verbal updates to provide for the commission, any of the committees are welcome to provide that.
We're still hoping to organize a meeting for the sports leagues at some point, but there's been no progress yet. Are there any other?
Let me say that, there we go. Commissioner Vargas emailed me right at 7 and checked in, by the way, so he couldn't make it because of his family matter. He was hoping himself to speak about the benches we discussed a couple of months ago. Do we have any updates on those commemorative benches that, no, you're involved, Mr. Light?
Yeah.
Yes, I was going to provide an update during my director's report, but
Yeah,
if there's
well, that's
anything
fine.
Commissioner Light would like to add now,
Yeah,
that
I
would be.
just wanted to say that we did get approval and checks went out for my mom's bench and another one. And I wanted to just thank the
Cool.
commission here for all your support
Good.
with that. So yeah, it's going.
Good news.
It's happening.
Yep.
Good stuff. Anybody else? Okay, so J4.
Don't believe, director's reports. Sorry about that. I just mentioned that. So we talked about the Wilderness Park benches. We did select a bench based off of the input of the commission. And as Commissioner Light mentioned, we are moving forward with getting those purchased and installed. So we're really excited to have those at the park. Wanted to just provide a very general update too, just so the commission didn't think it fell off of our radar. At the last meeting, the Commissioner Rowe did request a future discussion to talk about wheeled devices in the parks. And considering the discussion this evening with the school district and then just timing on trying to organize that, because we may want to include the police department in that discussion, because a lot of that goes into enforcement topics. We're going to be agendizing that hopefully at the next meeting. So just want to let you know, it's definitely on our list and something that you'll be seeing in the future.
So real quick, how do we want to handle this? That's a big topic, these motorized skateboards, scooters, and bicycles. Whenever I talk to anyone about what we do, they want to talk about gophers. I want to talk about motorized vehicles, recreational wheeled vehicles in the parks and sidewalks or whatever. How do we want to approach this? Are we going to recommend or give our opinion on these things in our parks? Or what do you think we should do?
Well, I think what would be helpful, and I was going to reach out to you offline, but we can certainly have a high-level discussion tonight because it's
for
not
sure.
agendized. But, that future discussion really is dependent on what the intent of the discussion would be based off of your request. If it's based on concerns over enforcement, certainly we would have police department here to talk on that. If there's safety issues, if there's certain areas that maybe we should consider not allowing it or prohibiting it, it is a big topic. And so I do think that, for the sake of making sure that it's a helpful discussion, we probably need to figure out how best to approach what your interest in the topic is. And then we can bring in any of our partners into that.
Yeah, I think the public has a large opinion on these things, in the parks and on the sidewalks, and we all hear it. And maybe we should at least put that in some kind of structural form to either give our opinion or stance on it. I understand talking to Mr. Elder, he says that there seems like they're focusing on education now versus enforcement, which is fine. When do you transition from education to, helping to ensure the safety of our pedestrians out there in our parks too, by the way, as you know. Anyway, it's just some more discussion, but.
Sure. So it sounds like it's more of a safety and kind of a how can we coexist?
Yeah.
Okay,
It
so,
might be, but then, we've got three different commissions involved with this one
Sure.
topic, and we have to stay in our lanes, but we have recs, we have parks, that's our jurisdiction. So anyway, enough said.
okay, that's helpful.
Yeah, thank you.
you.
Yes.
And that concludes all of my director's reports.
Okay, any member items for referral to staff?
I have a couple. I'm just curious what's going on at Perry Allison Layfield. There used to be grass there, and now it's just sort of like a muddy, there's a lot of dirt and mud, and there's no grass sort of in the whole center of the park. So I'm just curious what the plan is, or if there's replanting that's going to happen, or.
Yeah, I haven't heard of anything major being redone there, but I'll definitely follow up with Public Works and see if
I
there
can
is.
offer insight. Is that this very small field, about a football field size? Is that one I'm thinking of, on 190th? Or am I?
It's on 190th. Yeah, it's on 190th.
It's
Like
just a piece of grass, right?
it used to be this like huge, very robust, very grassy area, and now
Is
it's
it fenced in?
Yeah,
It's like a
yeah.
low
Well,
fence?
I'll
Yeah.
tell you, so I'll give you some insight. This is just man on the street. They had a program, this is Public Works. I was there. They installed a dosing system to water the grass with a emulsifier to enable the water to reach the ground faster, and a castor oil to help reduce rodent populations. They don't like castor oil. That's been going on for like 3 months. So if you saw a change, it might be this program isn't working very well. That's just man on the street, I'm not sure. But I was there when they installed the system of the pump, and they had a tank with 15 gallons of stuff. So
so it used to be just a good field for
Yeah.
for dog walking and for play, kids playing ball, practicing sports, and now you can't really play because it's mud.
is it mud or is it dirt? It's mud.
Well, I wouldn't say it's somewhere in between
Yeah.
mud and
I would
dirt.
just say that there's got to be less watering because of the restrictions, but if it's mud.
No, I
That
wouldn't
seems
call it, I
important.
wouldn't call it flat out mud, but I
Yeah.
would say
Well,
you're,
It's a pretty shady area too.
yeah, it's not just like dirt either. Yeah,
Well,
it's
I'll
somewhere
talk to the, Mike Garcia was helping them with that program, and I know the people, I'll reach out.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. And then
Yeah.
the other thing is, there have been a lot of, I've been receiving a lot of sort of emails and through word of mouth at school drop off and stuff about the baby swing being missing again at the Parquet, Greg Parquet. So it was missing for months and months, and then it returned, and then it's been missing for months and months again. So, so I don't know.
I don't mean to laugh. I'm just curious how that
I'm
keeps
curious.
happening.
I'm curious as well. I know you
Okay.
longer have use for it, but I know a lot of people do. So
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I'll follow up with Public Works on that
Okay.
one as well.
cool. And that's it for me.
All right. Anybody else? Okay, so our next meeting is October 12th. And anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you all very much for your time. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, ladies.
Need tools.